I was from Wayside, Texas. And my folks left Georgia in 1882, and they traveled over to McGehee, Arkansas. They had some cousin that was already there. And they stayed there 2 or 3 weeks and rested up. And they left there then and went to Dallas County. And they stayed in Dallas County for 5 years. And there's a little town named Sowers, 12 miles from Dallas. And while they was there, every one of them took malaria, and they lost their father there. I think there was 9 of the kids, some of them probably 21 or 2 years old, on down to probably about 8. My father was 8 years old, and there's one younger sister, Aunt Bessie. She was younger. They stayed there 5 years and left there and went to Floyd County. And they stayed, I understand I don't know just exactly the year what they stayed there, but in 1891, Uncle Jim McGehee and Uncle John McGehee and my father, he was 15 years old. They got in a covered wagon and came up to the Paladura Canyon on the south side and parked where the Claude Crossing came across. It was just a wagon road or a buggy road. And they parked the wagon there, and Uncle Jim and Uncle John got on their saddle horses that they had along and rode to Claude to find out where there's some land that they could settle on. And they got to Claude, there wasn't any land office. So they rode on to Clarendon. And it was 3 days and 3 nights. They left my father there at that covered wagon by himself for 3 days and 3 nights when he was 15 years old. And we finally bought that land where he camped from the JAs in 1930. And I often wondered if he ever thought maybe he might own that land when he was running around there in those hills when he was there by himself. After they were up here in 1891, they went, in 92, the whole family moved up to Wayside. And they settled in a place that they called a park. There was a branch of the Paladura came out going south, and the Happy Canyon was coming right along south of it. And there was a branch came out of or a finger came out of the Happy. And these two almost got together. But out in there, where they settled, was probably 1,500 to 2,000 acres of flat land, completely surrounded by canyon. And this is the only place they could drive in there. And they called it the park. And that's where they dug their half dugout, right on the edge of the Happy Canyon. And they had to carry the water up from a spring out of Happy. Well, about the only way they had to make any money was to cut posts out of those canyons and carry them out on the back and haul them down real and sell them for 10 cents a piece. And I guess my grandmother and her 3 daughters moved, Aunt Mary and Aunt Sally and Aunt Emma, all moved to Canyon out of this half dugout. Well, my dad and mother moved in there at that time. They was married in 1889. And my older sister and my next sister, 2 older sisters, were born in this half dugout. And they started in school when they was 7 years old. Lorraine was 7, Bernice was 5. And they drove, and it was about 3 miles from school at Wayside. And they hooked the buggy to the horse, and they drove this buggy to school. and that's the way they first started. W.A. McSpadden and my father and some of the other neighbors hauled the sand out of the Happy Canyon to build this first schoolhouse. And they had a little machine that was about like this that would make each block 16 by 8, and they made each block with that. And I'd give anything in the world we still had that little machine, but sometime we gathered up the junk, why we threw it off in the canyon. And the people that lived at Wayside when my folks came there were the McSpadden, the Rices, Bradfords, McFarlands, the Fishers, Madisons, Bradshaws, and the Records. And this McSpadden, he finally donated the land there for where the first schoolhouse was in the cemetery there in Wayside. And the Madisons, it was one of their sons that was mayor of Amarillo back in the 30s, I believe it was. Fred Madison was his name, was raised back there in what they call the park. Wayside never did grow much, if any, and there was a school there till maybe 20, 25 years ago, and now they go to Happy and Claude. And we have a church and a station. We had a grocery store there for years. It was run by a first cousin of mine, Doris Lane. But he died, I guess, 10, 12 years ago.